Let's let the Most High get all the glory as we grow in these new discoveries. Let's check it out. So this is from this anthologist and anthropologist, James Cowell Richard, born 1786 AD. And he identifies the Nuba being Negroes. Now follow me on this. So the Nuba are identified as being Negroes, particularly. And this geologist, born in this year here, identifies the Nuba as being Negroes as well, saying Nuba, that is to say, Negroes. So they're used interchangeably. Some people use Nuba as referring to Nubia, but in its actual meaning, it does not have a Nubian origin, as we see here from this anthologist and anthropology and Egyptologist. He states here that Nuba does not have a Nubian origin. So now we're reading from this geographer and historian here from a perspective of 800 AD. So he would be an eyewitness account. And he states, Nuba have become two kingdoms. The first is the kingdom that they call Merkura. The capital of their kingdom is Dongola. It is they who made peace with the Muslims and paid them back. The other Nubian kingdom, which they call Alwa. So now, reading about Alwa, because we see that the kingdom of Alwa was started by the Nuba, who are Negroes. Right? We read from those sources exactly who they are. So now, understanding that this Negro kingdom of Alwa is just that, let's look at the history files. And the history files by these guys here. And we're reading from this archaeologist, Derek A. Welsby. And he states the African kingdom of Alodia, Aloa, or Alwa, the Arabic form of the name. So Alodia and Alwa are the same thing, just different languages. You know, that's what we brought that out there just to make that clear. So this archaeologist states that both it and Alodia emerged in the centuries after the fall of the Kushite kingdom. So these Negroes in Alodia are not Kushites because they came to Kushite territory after the Kushites fell. All right. And it says, which had dominated the region from 785 BC to AD 350. So understanding that, let's find out who these people of Alodia actually are. These Negroes, who these people are. It's from the scholar here who was born between the 600s AD. And it says here from his writing, town of Alwa. Here are troops and a large kingdom with wide districts, in which there are 400 churches. The town lies to the east of the large island between the two rivers, the White and the Green Nile. All its inhabitants are Jacobite Christian. So the Negro race that we just read about of Alwa, from a source, 800s, we're reading here from 600s AD, that these people from eyewitness accounts are Jacobites. Okay, so I got to bring out this source here. This is from this archaeologist, historian, scholar. And this is the book, The Lost Tribes, A Myth, Suggestions Towards Rewriting Hebrew History. And he writes it because the way they determine the lost tribes now is a myth, because they know who the tribes are. And they identify it with several anthologists as well. And it's $18,500. You can get it on eBay for cheaper, but it'll let you know that there are going to be some pages missing. So we're going to be reading from this book. And it separates specific Nubas who are Hamitic black people from Negroes, identifying Cushites or Hamites as a different people group than Negroes. And he shows further that some Negroes are Jews. Now, this is his map right here. And this is important right here. I'm going to kind of zoom in here. He points out the Yemen Jews and Falashas, Berbers, Moorish, and Negro Jews. Now, we're zooming in on that same map, and it says other names in red are places of ancient Jewish colonies. So everywhere we see red is where the Jews were at. Check it out. Nuba. Yeah, because you remember, after the Cushites were gone from the Nuba place, then some Negroid people came in. And this archaeologist separates the Cushites or Hamites of Nuba and Negroes, who we read from eyewitnesses that identified these Nuba Negroes as Jacobites. Historian states Nuba were Jacobites. We're going to deal with an eyewitness who actually went to Europe. This is Josephus, a different Josephus, Josephus Abacnus. And it says, as he was commonly known, arrived at Oxford in 1603, but left for France shortly thereafter to teach Arabic in Paris, where he numbered the young Apenaeus among his students. In 1610, he returned to England, and having procured a letter of recommendation from Richard Bancroft. What's so important about this, guys, is that Richard Bancroft is the chief translator of the King James Bible. So this man met one of the translators of the King James Bible. You read the Bible, you should be listening to this. You should listen up. This is important right here. So what he has to say is how he described those people, Richard Bancroft, all those people that he saw in England. I'm sure he saw King James himself, because he was born in an eyewitness of those people. And this is his book, and this is what he said about him. He says, hitherto have we treated the name and origin of the Jacobites, and having proved them to have been descended from the patriarch Jacob. Now here's another thing. He says also, therefore the most probable opinion is this, that they are descended of the ancient patriarch Jacob, the son of Isaac, the son of Abraham, often called Israel in Holy Writ. So another source by him, this is just reading, this is his writing right here. So this is because they are the sons of Jacob and are from thence called Jacobites, as one may see in the first chapter. They, for this reason, observed almost all the Jewish ceremonies. So they were Jews, straight Jews. And another writing of it says, Jacobites, but the before cited patriarch, and this also I can myself affirm, that in their exhortation as well as public as private, I have heard them called Israelites and the flock of Israel. And this is where he also states, and this is done by the Ethiopians or the Jacobites. Notice he uses that word interchangeably. And this is Hebraist, and he was born in 1564. And he was born around the time of King James. And he says the Ethiopian only accepted for the true Jacobite of whom we are speaking make use of leavened bread. And Gregory the 13th, who proposed to found a college at Rome for the Jacobites. So these Jacobites, who look like Ethiopians, who black people, were all in Rome. According to this guy right here, it says the Jacobites of whom he's speaking. So when he uses the word Jacobites, that's who he's talking about. So he says further, let's skip down here. He says the Jacobites who are scattered and dispersed throughout Syria and parts adjacent are still computed to amount to about 50,000 families. There is a quotation in Berrywood wherein the number was then advanced to 160,000. Now, what's crucial about this is, yes, they went to France, but the Jacobites ended up in England. So we have to hear word about Jacobites in England. Now, according to this guy here, who was born around the same time as King James, says that there were black Jacobites in Berrywood. And he says 160,000. This is Berrywood. Berrywood is in England. So all these eyewitness accounts are saying the exact same thing. And this is the professor of linguistics. And this is what he has to say. He said, although his attempt to date the omelet to 1625 to 650 is not certain, but see his paleographical arguments, and he says his observation is that the matrices, lexion, Hebrew letters used to represent vowels of the text of the omelet match those of the Masoretic text is significant. Thus, the silver scrolls are best understood as written copies of the biblical text. So those scrolls match the biblical text, the Masoretic text. Now check this out, that we're going to discover who the Masoretes are. This is what we added up, why the nationality is very important to understand. This is the Jacobites starting in the 6th century. And they're called Masoretes. And we see here, this is the catalog of the Persian manuscripts in the British Museum. It said, describe the head of punctuation of the Syriac Masora. Nearly all of these represent the labors of the Jacobite schools. And if we read down here, it says the Jacobite Masoretes extended their labors not only over the whole Bible, but also over the texts such as Greek writers. So this is why I'm saying, that's why I'm harnessing on the King James version of the Bible, because his ancestors were the very people who actually dealt with the manuscripts. And that's why I wanted to point that out. And then also, so this is a linguist here, and she states, Saley comes to the same conclusion as Gottstein, and he talks about the text, the textual fluidity of the Jacobite Masoretic tradition. So it's known from early manuscripts that these are Jacobites who did this. This is why I went into the Jacobites, to show he was a Jacobite, y'all. I hope y'all getting the whole connection and how this pans out. The Jacobites translated the Bible from Jacobite manuscripts.